Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a nice evening and that you could really relax. So we'll continue with our session this morning with our second panel on innovation in practice. We made a few changes in the agenda, if you remember from yesterday. So Patrick will kindly agree to change and to speak today about the Belgium experience, and mainly about the 10 years of digital strategy in Belgium. And so the idea is really to talk a little bit about what happened in the past, but as well what is the future and what they have planned for the future. Then we will have Fatih Gungor, is in Ankara at the moment, I think, and he will join us. He will be our second panelist. Then we will have Luís Guedes, that you met yesterday here, from the Portuguese Prison Service. And finally, we'll have another panel, another intervention by Rhiannon and Anne. And our moderator for this panel is Marianne, that we all met yesterday. Thank you very much for being with us again and to moderate this panel. So I just pass the floor to you, Marianne. And
thank you, Pedro.
Please.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope you have had a good sleep and you are ready for our second day. And we are having second panel discussion, innovation in practice, which is actually my favorite on all conferences. So as Pedro already said, that we are going to start with some changes in our schedule. So the first one is going to be Patrick from the Belgium Prison Service, and with a presentation and 10 years, learning from 10 years of implementation of digital services in prisons. So I will leave him to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Patrick. I'm from the Belgian Prison Service. I'm a Vice Regional Director for the moment. So the way I will be addressing this presentation is more from the management perspective. First of all, I would love to thank my Portuguese hosts for the seminar. It has been quite amazing so far, so thank you for your hospitality. What have I done throughout the years? Mainly, I worked as a prison director in several prisons. I think for more than 10 years. At a certain moment, I was the head of the only juvenile prison in Belgium. We closed that, and at that moment, the Director-General said to me, Patrick, you have to come to the headquarters. There I have been for several years in several positions, also a short while as CEO, also as project manager of the existing OMS system, but now lately, last years, as a Vice Regional Director. So we have 37 prisons and rising. Why rising? I will go into that briefly shortly, but you have some distinctions between those prisons. Some are for pre-trial population, some for those who are already convicted for a crime. We also have specific sections in several prisons for the mentally ill. And what do I mean by mentally ill? Those people who were considered by a judge as not committing their crimes because of a mental illness reason. You would say, why are they in Belgian prisons? Well, they are, and the numbers are increasing lately. We went from 500 3 years ago up to 850 right now. And then you have a new thing, the new kid on the block in Belgium. That are the transition and detention houses. What's so different about those two in comparison with the others? They are it's small housing. So the group consists of 15 up to 50 inmates. The transition houses are mainly targeting a group that had several years inside the prison as a step towards complete rehabilitation. Detention houses are mostly aiming those who have to serve short sentences. So yeah, like in our country, we speak 2 languages. To make it simple, they made then 2 regional directors, one for the Dutch, one for the French-speaking, and both have 2 vice-regional directors, and I'm one of them for the Dutch-speaking bit. I have to tell you honestly, I heard so many interesting things yesterday, and lots of those things were things that I would like to say again as well today. But I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to freewheel a bit through my own presentation. So don't be like, what's he saying now? Because that's not on the slide. Those things are already been said by others that say that much more beautiful as I do. So what are our challenges? Yeah, the first one, that's the obvious one. Belgium it's not always paradise. This is something that we encounter, that has been there for decades, and that we don't find a solution to deal with, and I mean the overcrowding. As you can see, on the 5th of April, we had a 115% overpopulation. It's mainly in the Dutch-speaking region and in Brussels, where the problem is the highest, up to sometimes even 25% overpopulation. Shortage in prison staff, that won't surprise you. I guess every country tackles the same problem, finding suitable staff, especially those with a degree that are widely searched for, like nurses, psychiatric nurses. Like I said before, the high level of mental illness and also the drug addiction amongst our prisoners, that's a severe problem. And another thing, and I think I said that in the presentation because I want to make a bridge with the technology that we're going to use in a couple of years. That's something that defines us, the huge amount of foreign nationalities within our prison system. I can tell you the latest numbers were we had 1,633 foreigners who had a permission to live in Belgium, but they don't always speak Dutch or French. And we had 3,276 foreigners incarcerated with no right to stay in Belgium after release. So if you combine those two, we are about 45% of our general population comes from abroad. That defines the way people live and work in a prison. If you have many people from so many different countries speaking so many different languages, that's something that you have to address as management. That's something that you can't forget and think like, oh, everybody here speaks or Dutch or French. That's not the case. In several prisons, in some prisons even, 2/3 of the population won't speak any word of Flemish or any word of French. So that's a major problem because, okay, huge amount of foreign nationalities like France and the Netherlands are also in our top 10, but others are most likely Maghreb countries like Morocco, Algeria, also a lot of Eastern European countries with a huge amount of foreigners in our prison system like Poland, Romania, Albania. And a third group that's always also quite substantial is the former Russian federations, Russia itself, Chechnya, Georgia, Azerbaijan. We see a lot of those people as well incarcerated in Belgian prisons. So I don't know if that's comparable with your countries, but I think that we really have, in comparison to other countries, a huge amount of foreign nationalities, what affects the way you work and live in your prison. So what did we do, and what did we already take as a step? The first one, I can't express that enough, the importance of electronic monitoring for our prisons. We saw that we have an overpopulation of 115%. Besides those people incarcerated, you can see at the same date we had 3,076 people wearing a bracelet. And we also had, and that's something that people will say like, do you do that? 2,380 persons awaiting the placement of an electronic bracelet. Who are those? Those are people with a sentence total of less than 3 years. They were brought by the police, or they came themselves, like, okay, here for a sentence. Our administration then looks, do you have an address in Belgium? Yes. Do you have a telephone number that can confirm that? Okay, yes, they phone. Oh, can this person live with you until there's time to place the bracelet? And if they say yes, we say to that person after 50 minutes, half an hour, you can go. And we suspend the execution of your sentence for a while until the bracelet is placed. So if you wouldn't have that system, and if you would have to add up those 2,380 persons on the rest of our population, I guess no prison whatsoever could function anymore. So that's also typical Belgian style. We have 2,380 people just at home without any condition. People don't watch them. The only police, and that's what See the Swede is good about, that's our OMS system. For those group, and that's one of the things that I can't express enough, in the current OMS there was a lot of concern about the interfaces with other primary partners. Hans Meurissen, well known by some of you, was our Director-General then, and he said our OMS has to ensure that a lot of our key partners have to know things about those that we follow. And like, for instance, there are 2,380 people who have an interface with the police. They have an own portal, police portal. So every day, all the people who have a name in a prison are pushed towards them. So if a policeman then encounters someone on the street, asks questions, and he says, oh yeah, but I'm under suspension of sentence, they can check up, okay, is indeed linked to a certain prison. That's important if you work like this. That police knows, okay, this is someone that's followed by the prisons. Police is not only one of the primary partners that have interfaces with us, also the communities, social welfare, the cities, all within the police, different branches of the police, the local police, those responsible for transportation, the federal police, you name it, and we made an interface. Prison Cloud, I think in the last 10 years, Prison Cloud was once or twice mentioned at the Congress, so I'm not going to go into that for too long. But you know, yeah, that were the first devices in cell. Really a state of art on the moment that it started. So my congratulations to you, Stephen, for your performances back then. Then you had the video calls. The video calls, like others yesterday said as well, it became a possibility after you're waiting for years and years and years, and then the pandemic starts, and then in a couple of weeks and months, you can arrange that your inmates have a mean by a laptop to talk with someone through a video call. Very important if you make the link with our population. That opened the door for a lot of our men and women incarcerated to see their family again. Because if you live in Romania or in Poland or in Algeria, you're not coming over for a visit. So for this group, that made huge difference. And then the consult online, I think, and here they are. In some other slides, you will see we have since 2017. That's also a nice thing. It's not done by the IT of prisons, but by the IT service of the Ministry of Justice. So we have two IT services, one global for the Ministry of Justice, and then one side branch for the prisons. So this one is made by the Ministry of Justice. What does it do? We delivered laptops to every prison, and inmates with their lawyer could consult all their mandates, all their arrests of their crimes online, in presence of their lawyer in prison. So then see the street at a certain moment. We did a lot. And then someone knocked on my door, a really big fellow, shiny man, sunglasses, and he was very familiar, and he was like, "Oh, hello, Patrick, I'm going to sit at your table. What are you going to do?" "Oh, my plans are, I think we're going to watch a football match." And he's like, no, we're going to do something else." "And what are we going to eat?" "No, we're going to eat something else." Well, that person, that's a friend of all of us. That's the privacy legislation that came along with the GDPR rules. And at a certain moment, that friend said to us, "What you are contributing with all the others and what you're gathering, no. You have to take a step back. Where's your legislation, according to privacy rules, that arranges all these things? And where are all your different protocols with all your different partners that states which information goes to the other and by what means?" That was for us something like, whoa, huh? I think privacy is a very, very important subject, but the amount of work that it gave us and the amount of problems that it gave us as well at the moment that they said, like, you have to do things differently, that was just incredible, because we were working in a state of we have to develop and we have to deliver. Also on political level, administration level. Okay, see the suite, this and this and this for this partner, this and this and this for this partner, and it worked fine and it worked efficient. And then at a certain moment I said, but you forgot a certain aspect of what you're doing. So that's something, if we're talking about changing the OMS, that's a lesson learned now towards the new OMS system. While we made a tender, we made 3 different lots. One was really the content, the new system, but the third one was really just make the new one from immediately fully GDPR proof. So that's one of the lessons learned that we had. We had a lot of legislation last years to define all the IT applications that we use, that police uses, that foreign affairs uses. That was something that at a certain moment, and that was my luck at the moment that I was the head of that project, came along and made us age a year by every month. That's so, if you wonder why I'm so gray, that's my good friend there, one of those reasons. Then you had the video calls. I expressed that like it's much more than just a telephone call. It made it for people able to see their relatives, and that's so much more than just a video call or a telephone call. And then you have to consult online. And then the prison cloud. A secured self-service delivery platform. Steven referred to the study of Jana Robrechts yesterday. So I had some key findings there on that slide. And I think the conclusion is a very important one. Like, if you digitalize things, it can never be a quick solution for a complex problem. Use the tools that you provide, your staff and your inmates, in an intelligent way. So that summarizes, I guess, a lot of what she studied and found out in a good way. Like, the application itself can't be the goal at itself. It has a mean to deliver other goals. And if you don't be aware of that proactively, the application that you work with might not be suitable for the goals and for the challenges that you tackle. So, besides digitalization with all our population, what are some major strategies that our Minister and our Director-General are thinking about? We went for the idea that there's much more than just the prison guard. You have to differentiate in that function accordingly also to what people like to do most, to what people are most capable of doing the most, and then you have the persons really in charge of the security, and that's a new concept that we think like your main target is really to be in interaction with the inmate behind the door. You're the first caretaker of the people incarcerated on your aisle. So we made that distinction. The second one, the teams of the directors, they all had a title, but everybody was a bit doing the same thing. Mostly also out of calamities and daily pressure. Now we're saying more like, we want to differentiate in that team as well and increase the numbers of people supporting that director staff by people with a degree that can take a lot of administration out of their hands. That's also something that's now being highly tackled. We had lots of newcomers right now that start working in our prisons as a support for our direction staff. What we are looking for as well, and it's a difficult journey, it's really a difficult journey, are those that we want to work with, those people who are mentally ill. But if the hospitals or others can't find the nurses of the psychiatric nurses, why would they come and work in a prison environment? So it's a really tough job. It's to find those, and we're still looking forward. Yeah, what do we do then? Yeah, you have the existing prisons and all the new concepts of small housing and things like that. That's one of the main goals of our current minister. He really wants to install every year several of those small housing projects. It goes not smoothly, you can imagine. There goes a lot of preparation towards that, and the resentment of the people living around that small house, you can imagine, is always quite intense. So you have some housing that we thought like, oh, that's a suitable house, that we said afterwards, no, not going to do that. Too much friction with the local police, with the local mayor, with the community. That's not going to work. So that's also really a search. Like sometimes you find a house and you think, like, no, we're not going to do that neither. Because if you have no public transportation whatsoever from there, why are we going to incarcerate those people there for a short while? Because the aim is, being in that house means that you can go outside of that house a lot. One of the beautiful things that I will refer to now with these small houses, we planted a seed for the smartphone. The German colleagues told us yesterday about that as well. The use of a smartphone by an inmate during incarceration. Our policy now is, if you're living in that transition house and that detention house, you can use your smartphone like any other person. So that's, I think, our first, but always a first step is always a substantial one towards using or feeling confident enough that you let an inmate use a smartphone in his cell or in his room. I think like to say, oh, it's only for these small houses, but I can see throughout the years, and we saw that yesterday as well with the telephone thing. First, telephones really, really regulated, then on the aisles, that you have the visual control of the guard, then into the cell. Will the use of a smartphone be the next step that isn't yet on that slide? My guess is yes. Am I against it? No. I think if we prepare ourselves enough towards that, why not in certain circumstances? So this is our first step there. I'm going to be honest, we had long discussions in the management team about the use of the smartphone, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. So there were strong believers and strong disbelievers. In the end, the believers won, and I think it's a positive step. Then the other one is, we always tend to make the classification of our prisons in a prison like, okay, what's the length of your sentence? What's your gender? Okay, you end up there. nowadays, and I saw your presentation with AI as well, Pedro, I found it very interesting. We're looking at other criteria for the classification. So what's definitely the most important aspect of an inmate, for an inmate to afterwards resocialize the best? So the social context becomes much more of a criteria as well in our policy to think, where is this man or this woman incarcerated? I can't stress that enough, like what we have, for instance, yeah. With so much overpopulation, you sometimes have to pick someone up and put them 200 kilometers elsewhere. Yeah, you cut him off of a lot of possibilities and a lot of social contacts. And I don't think that that's the right way to go. So lots of people are now thinking like, oh, maybe do this. Also with our foreign nationalities, that's one of the newest things. I'm one of the strong believers that we have to go that way, is specialize, not concentrate, but I mean specialize certain prisons and make certain prisons almost entirely prisons for those convicted with a foreign nationality. And why do I say that? We have also, and I'm the single point of contact for that as well, an agency within internal affairs who deals with and addresses this specific group. People coming towards Belgium, asking for legal stay, deciding if they have the right to stay in our country or not, address them, inform them, also arrange if they can't stay their departure from our country. They now come inside our prisons as well, but they have to go everywhere because they're everywhere. Over all prisons, you have their target group. So I think, and that's why I use the word specialization. If you work with prisons where that's your group of people working with their specific characteristics while incarcerated, like less visit, huge interest in working, huge interest in learning a language to make it able to correspond with the guard, then you can really target your own personnel and the personnel of the other agency to give these men and women also a better life circumstances inside the prison. And that's something then, if I make our bridge, this is an important one. I'm really curious what I would tell 1 year later from now, because I'm not sure how I will manage to do this. We have this year the installment of Just From Cell from Telio, as you all know, the prison cloud system. We're going to place a self-service digital platform for all prisoners in all existing prisons by the end of this year. So we're currently doing this. So we go from 3 to 37 in 9 months. Yeah. It silence me up as well. I'm really looking at like that, like, okay, we start in February and you see, okay, this one added, this one added, okay. And then so far going good, but I wonder where we will be in October when so many other prisoners are using the same system at the same time. I'm really anxious about that, but it's new and it's improved with improved features of what we provide towards the prisons that use Prison Cloud, because yeah, that's of course, you can see some of the features that we're going to use. And one important thing that I sometimes say in this management team, seeing the challenges that we face, is also the language barrier. You can install this, but if 40% of the population doesn't understand a thing about how to use it, where is then the efficiency of this investment? So for me, and that's something that I often say in our organization, the translation modules to translate certain texts or explanations in so many different countries than our own are so important if we want to make this a success. And then you think, okay, once you're done with that, you can rest a bit because you did a good job. No, no, no. At the same time, now, with our partners from Unilink, we're closing the old OMS and starting with the new one on the 1st of January of next year. So if you think like, they don't have problems enough and challenges enough with the overcrowding, no, no. We do the both of them at the same time. Makes me silent. So I'm really, really sometimes afraid where we will be in, what state we're going to be in 1 year. Because I know all these things, but I think you know the answer on my question. How much do you know, or how much do you think that the prison guards and the inmates are aware of what's happening right now? Not that much. But it will change their working circumstances and life conditions dramatically throughout the next year. So that's something like, that you can ask me then, Patrick, haven't you learned the thing then throughout the last 10 years? Well, certain things, but we also make certain mistakes again. And I think, I can't stress that enough, things like DIGICOR, for instance, where you really aim and really bring into the front line of the image that it's very important that you include your personnel and that you educate your staff for things to happen, especially in this world, is so important if you want to make things work. And I think that's one of the good things as well of being a partner in DIGICOR. It made us aware of these things, and we're trying to do our best. And you have now roadshows, like Telio, for instance, themselves. They go to a certain prison, but it's too late. When it's not their fault, it's our fault. But they go a couple of weeks before they start transforming and installing everything. So you can, but then I think it's our fault that we haven't been proactively enough towards these prisons to tell them, this is going to happen in the near future for you. And now someone comes in with good intentions and says, we're going to do this and this the next couple of weeks. We'll be here in your house for 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the size of the prison. Then we're off, and then you have just from cell. I think it's a management issue on our behalf to be more aware of that. Same thing now, a bit happening with just prison. You have people really, really putting their efforts into making things known, going towards different prisons. But it tends to be not enough. And one prison is not the other. So what do I mean by that? Some are really highly overpopulated. I gave an example yesterday to Rhiannon and some of my colleagues what happened in Antwerp a couple of weeks ago. So if you call out for people working inside the prison to be also an advisor in the new modules, what do you see then in the end? That you get several prisons helping out in lots of modules, and you have other prisons where you have none of their co-workers there present in those working groups. And what's the difference? The work pressure inside that prison? You don't have to be naive about that. When you have a bit more time than another one, you can invest in a certain thing like this and think about that. And that's also then awareness, I guess, like don't make then, if you see that you have a huge number of directors or prison staff working in a prison with no overpopulation, don't customize the product too much towards their way of working, because otherwise you will get in trouble in those other prisons where they are with 3 in 1 cell. I'm still positive. And it's things that we see, but it's things that are happening right now as well. And therefore I say, like, I'm really curious where we'll be, in what state in a year. I put them together on one slide because I also think that there's a huge possibility and a huge advantage if we invest enough, and that's also, again, our responsibility and not the providers, in the ways that those two brilliant applications communicate with each other. And what do I mean by that? The information provided by Unilink about one person's file, about his personal agenda, when do I go to a court, when is my visitation, how can I reserve a visit, if you can put a lot of that information towards the other content, and the inmate can see those things, that would be a huge step forward. So I'm positive. I think we will end up there, but I'm also realistic. I think the 1st of January of 2024 will not be the most pleasant day. And I think the 1st of February of next year, neither. Maybe in 2 years, I will say like, okay, no, we're there. But I think next year, I already looked at my agenda. If I'm on guard on the 1st of January of next year, and I am, so I don't plan too much on the 31st of December, because I know that the 1st of January could be a big one. Then what do we do as well? The e-learning for the training staff, including the courses inspired by the DIGICOR experience, like for instance, and that's something that we notice now, the 25th of April, we have our first event. We distributed it out to all prison staff, like feel free to join. We're going to talk a bit about the digital improvements that we're going, and the digital challenges for the next couple of years. We're going to explain them to you, and you have the possibility to give your opinion and also point out what's important for you as a prison guard, as a psychologist, as a director. If you do this, be aware of this and this and this. The number of people that inscribed, for me, it was quite a lot. I was quite surprised by the amount of people that say, I want to participate in this. And this highlights even more the importance that you have to include your personnel, because they're going really into an unknown world, and they're unaware of the fact that they're going into an unknown world right now. I'm almost done. Then we have another system now that connects with the health department. Then we have another system. You can find that on the DIGICOR scenarios. In one prison where we use goggles, the nurse puts the goggles on, a specialist in a specialized hospital, not from the prison, sees everything through the eyes of the nurse. He can or she can tell the nurse, ask this, or perform this and this with your patient. And if then the specialist thinks, nah, this person should come to the hospital, he can say that. It's quite a success. Another one, very important, we're just going to talk a bit about the first one. What we made as well with my good friend that came inside of the door is the digital policy, a defined digital policy. If you work with us, or if you're from another agency and you want to work with us, with inmates, you have to comply with these and these and these rules using digital tools. And then I'm at my conclusion, and I said most things. So I can stop talking here, and if there are some questions from the audience, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Patrick.